So recently I have been playing High on Life, the newest game from the developers Squanch Games and Justin Roiland, one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty. I remember when the game was first revealed at Xbox's showcase earlier this year and thinking that it seemed pretty interesting, the biggest selling point obviously being the comedy.
Go ahead, do it. Shoot me, fresh meat. Shoot me. See what happens. Oh, don't I look so shootable? Ah, you shot me, I'm dead.
I'm not really the biggest Rick and Morty fan. I've only seen the first 2 seasons and I thought it was pretty good, but not quite at the level a lot of people put the show at. So I believed that this game would make me chuckle a few times and that I would eventually put it down after a couple of hours. I'm happy to say that this game exceeded my mild expectations and was enjoyable enough for me to go through the majority of the game without feeling bored. There seems to be an either love or hate relationship people have with the comedy in High on Life, at least from what I've seen on Twitter and YouTube. Some people see it as immature and edgy, while others see it as comedy gold. I'm really in the middle with this game as I found the comedy had its highs and its lows. There was one bit I remember where an NPC tells you to look after his bike while he goes off to do something. So you're there, basically stuck, unable to move, waiting until the guy comes back. But the second you move your camera away from the bike to look around, it disappears. The guy then immediately comes back and starts crying, talking about how his mom gave him the bike and all that. I'm probably explaining this terribly, but in the moment I found it pretty funny and it actually got me to laugh. There are little scenes and bits like this spread all throughout the game and are easily some of the best and most memorable sections from my playthrough. Another thing I really enjoyed in this game is the dialogue. Well, not necessarily the quality of the dialogue itself, but the different voice lines that are triggered depending on what you do in the game. For example, in the start, when the aliens invade Earth, special dialogue is triggered in the middle of the invasion, where Kenny goes off on you for pausing the game.
What the fuck? You just paused the game. This doesn't help at all. Are you an idiot? Everyone knows pause button. In what fucking game is the pause button shoot?
There are also cases where the guns you are holding will have unique dialogue when speaking with an NPC. This isn't really a game changer, but it is a nice little touch and goes to show that the developers went above and beyond by adding lines a player might not even encounter during their time with the game. All that being said, like I said before, there are also lows in this game, and these lows are honestly so low that it wasn't just that I found them unfunny, it started to get to a point where I was actually getting annoyed and pissed off. The thing I hate the most in this game, at least in terms of comedy, is Kenny. This bastard is annoying as fuck. Justin Roiland's Morty voice is fine at first, but it starts to get very annoying and petty the more you play the game. By far the worst comedy bits are the ones where Kenny does this long explanation of a joke or a thing that you see in the game. I completely understand the kind of joke they are trying to tell by making Kenny give long-winded explanations of very obvious references and other things that you see in the game, but the way these jokes are delivered with Kenny stumbling over his words and just going on and on and on becomes stale very quickly. It got to the point where just hearing his nasally high-pitched voice started to piss me off, even if he wasn't telling a joke and offering genuine advice. For me at least, it's a shame that Kenny had to be the main gun that you use, because I found the other guns to be pretty good. Even though all their jokes didn't hit, I never found them to be annoying or detracting from my overall enjoyment of the game. Despite this one character, I found the comedy overall to be very enjoyable, and it is easily the highlight of this game. If you are a fan of Rick and Morty, it's safe to say that it is almost certain that you will enjoy the comedy in High on Life, and vice versa. Now that we have discussed the comedy, let's start talking about the most important part in any game, the gameplay. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're slapping your knee and dying at every joke said in the game. If the gameplay isn't good, then it simply isn't a good game. Fortunately, this isn't the case with High on Life. The gameplay is surprisingly pretty good. It's nothing revolutionary or special, but the first-person shooter gameplay is satisfying and fair. Instead of just spamming the same 2 or 3 guns, I actually found myself using pretty much every single gun almost evenly, which is a good sign. Not only did each of the guns have their own personality, the guns themselves were unique, having different functions and abilities that can be used in many different scenarios. For example, I used Creature's ability a ton when there was a beefy enemy with a ton of hit points, so I can hypnotize it to deal with the other enemies during combat. Squeezy's ability is also useful to slow down enemies so I can blast them with Kenny's special when they are grouped together. The ways these abilities can be combined and used together is amazing, and is a clear sign of a very effective combat system. It seems that a lot of people had a problem with the enemy variety in the game, but I don't really share the same opinion. There are a decent amount of enemies, with the typical grunt, grenade throwing enemies, snipers, and the drone enemies from what I remember. The variety of these enemies is what encouraged me to make use of all my guns I had in my arsenal, and it made me switch up my playstyle depending on the enemy I was facing. Sure, having more enemies would definitely be great, but it didn't feel as though the variety of enemies I faced was too small. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised by the combat in High on Life. Normally, when you have games that tend to have a unique gimmick, in this case the comedy, there is less of an emphasis on the gameplay, resulting in your enjoyment of the game completely relying on the gimmick. However, with High on Life, as long as you don't absolutely hate the humor, the gameplay would still be enough for you to enjoy the game. The more I played, I did start to get a bit tired of the combat, and the story didn't really keep me engaged. But at that point, since I already put a ton of time into the game, I sort of pushed through at the end. One thing that shocked me a bit was the $60 price tag. I played this game on Game Pass, so that wasn't really a problem for me, but I can easily see how some people may feel as though this game is a bit overpriced. It does feel more like a high-end AA game along the lines of Sifu, and not a full $60 AAA game. Unless you are a fan of Justin Roiland and his humor, I wouldn't suggest buying High on Life at full price, as it would be better to either try it out on Game Pass or wait for a sale. To end this off, I would give High on Life a solid 7 out of 10. I find the humor to be good and the gameplay to be fun and engaging overall. It doesn't really do anything unique, but it doesn't really do anything poorly either from my experience. But I can now say that I am a fan of Squanch games, and I look forward to playing whatever they have in stock for their next project. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more reviews like this in the future. Thank you for watching, have a good one.